Hello, my name is Chris Young, and welcome to the UYC Show. Urban Youth Collaborative is a nonprofit 501c3 based in San Diego. Our mission is to support student-led Christian clubs on school campuses and connect local churches to those clubs. This is a weekly show to tell the story of all God has done through us, to encourage you, the listener, and help explain how this can be done wherever you are. Today we have a roundtable discussion with the Grove Church. Ryan is the UYC Coastal Director and Youth Intern at the Grove. How you doing, Ryan?
Hey, I'm doing great.
AJ Hoffman is the Ministries Pastor at the Grove. How you doing, AJ?
Doing great. Glad to be here.
And Taylor is the Youth Pastor at the Grove Church. How you doing, Taylor?
Not too hot considering I'm in the presence of two people who have magnificent beards.
That's a great start.
Ryan being one of them.
So
not Chris.
So Ryan and I have both discussed how we are involved with UYC. So could you, AJ, and Taylor share how you have come to be connected with UYC?
Yeah, so about 4 years ago, I moved back from Grand Canyon University and started working at the Grove and got connected with Chris from our previous youth pastor. And we had a club, just one single club at Lewis Middle School. And I just met Chris through that. And basically, that club kind of has been the thing that's built our student ministry. And so we just kind of started day one, at least I started day one, with UIC and with Chris. And it's been like an incredible partnership ever since.
Yeah, I came to San Diego 2 years ago. AJ recruited me. We met at Grand Canyon University. We were roommates, best friends, stepbrothers type deal.
Friends at first sight.
And so when I graduated at Grand Canyon, I moved out to San Diego to start working at the Grove, just part-time, and got involved with clubs right away. My first club was Lewis 2. But from there, we kind of just exploded our club outreach, and we are at how many now?
5, right? I mean,
five clubs. Yeah. So Lewis was the start for me, and then that first year we added Pershing, and then the following year we added Taft and High Tech and Patrick Henry. So we're at 5 schools now.
And Henry's a high school. It's
Henry's
our first high school club.
Yes, Patrick Henry.
So 4 middle schools, 1 high school. That's a perfect segue into the next question. You already answered. What schools is the Grove Church
I studied.
And so why don't we talk a little bit about what are some of the benefits of this connection between UIC and the Grove Church?
Yeah, so I'll start here a little bit. Often I get other youth pastors who just start. They call me and they kind of come check out our student ministry on Friday for junior high and high school Sunday nights. And one of the main questions they ask is, how'd you get a ton of kids in the room? And for me, the biggest, most successful outreach in any student ministry is going to be at your campus clubs. You're going to go to where there's, a concentrated number of, hundreds to even thousands of the exact demographic of student you're looking for. And, you have these key leaders, and we really rely on our key leaders to do some incredible kind of leading for us or groundwork before we even get there. And so they're inviting their friends. And for me, the biggest return on investment has been we've grown in numbers, but through that's where we've had, most of our kids get saved. Because for us, ministry really isn't just about the kids in the church. It's about the kids in the community, too. And so I've been in love with campus clubs because, probably, what do you think, Taylor? 75% of the kids in our ministry come from those clubs?
100%, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fascinating because where I come from in Phoenix, doing this type of ministry is very uncommon. So when I moved here and AJ said we do these clubs, I had to do like a double take because it didn't make sense in my head. I never knew that was a thing. So when we got to be a part of these outreach clubs, and when I have conversations with other youth pastors and they tell me they're not doing this, I ask, what's wrong with you? You need to do something like this because it is the easiest way to meet kids, to meet students, build relationship with students. And even more so, we understand as youth directors, youth pastors, and youth leaders, when you do student ministry, it's not just ministry to students, right? It's to families.
Yeah.
And this has been a really cool mechanism for us, just church-wide, meeting students, but through us being on campuses and clubs and reaching these kids that don't come from backgrounds of church, their whole family, end result, is coming to the Grove now. I mean, we've had multiple instances where their student started coming to a Friday night because we met them at an urban youth collaborative club, or a higher ground club, and then their kid loved it so much they invited their whole family to a Sunday morning, and now they're a part of our church.
And to me, one of the reasons why I think, Great Commission, like go make disciples of all people, and I think sometimes church can get so caught up in like the walls and being inside and who's already there. For me, it's a clear communicative way that we are going outside the walls onto public school campuses and connecting with people who aren't saved. And so for me, it brings so much joy that I'm going out, and I'm not focused so much so on what is happening inside the church, but we're going out into probably the one place the devil does not want us to go to. And so to me, it's probably one of the most joyful things that we do, that I get to be part of as a youth pastor. And it's crazy to me how many ministries youth pastors aren't doing it. It's so simple. You bring pizza and kids will come. Like it's pretty easy. And you create those relationships. It's incredible.
And as a former student leader, I can attest how important it was to see, at the time the youth pastor was Nathan Cornett and then Jared Johnson, both of them coming to Patrick Henry, being at my school, and having that club with me and spurring me on to lead and do the things that I was called to do was a huge help. And it was a turning point for me that, my youth pastors care about me. They're coming to my school and they're putting time and energy into making sure that I know what I'm doing. And just from a student perspective, seeing that the youth pastors care was huge. And the Grove coming to Patrick Henry and being part of the club was a real turning point for me in my faith.
Can you add, Ryan, a little bit about the benefits now that you're on staff with UYC and staff with the Grove, kind of that aspect?
Yeah, for sure. So the biggest, I think, success story is this kid named Noah, and he goes to a school in OB, and he started coming to the Grove because he didn't have a church that he was going to, and he knew that I went to the Grove, so I invited him. He came to a couple Friday nights, went to our winter camp, got saved there, and now is a student leader at our clubs, and it is just amazing to see the fact that I kind of have my toes in both worlds, to see that collaborative effort, no pun intended, of churches and UYC coming together and really bringing kids from schools into churches, which is the whole point. We want kids that don't know who Jesus is in these public schools to really feel safe and feel able to go to churches in their neighborhoods and feel like, this is where I'm supposed to be.
That's great. Why don't we talk about what can UIC and the Grove Church focus on for the future? Now that we've got 5 clubs going together, what are some things we can focus on going forward?
Well, I think for me, my mind, when it is geared towards the future, I always probably think bigger than what I should think. And I mean, Chris, this is something that we've talked about a little bit. I think about big things such as doing massive assemblies. We've had a few conversations with faculty and principals, and having a Grove Urban Youth Collaborative assembly on campuses where we get to be in front of the whole school. How many kids are on those campuses? 1,000?
Yeah, about 1,000.
Yeah. Being in front of 1,000 kids, being able to preach the gospel and show them that Christianity isn't this weird cult-like organization, but it is the best thing that could ever happen to them. That would be an incredible thing I feel like we could do, partnering together. And I think on top of that, just finding more youth pastors and getting them on campus in places where there isn't already an existing club. I know that the 3 of us here, we've been able to meet a lot of incredible people in San Diego that run youth ministries and are yet to be on campuses. And there's plenty of campuses that are around them that haven't been touched yet. And being able to help them make that step towards outreaching on that campus, that would be a huge dream for me too.
Yeah, I think that if there's one thing I was kind of praying, I was driving here thinking about communicating and wanting to share, it was that because we've been able to partner with UIC, there's the things that if you're your youth pastor and you're hearing this, you're like, how do I get the forms filled out? How do I get a teacher? There's all these roadblocks that I never have once had to deal with because of Chris and UIC. They have set me up to basically, I text Chris, hey, do I show up this week? Yes. Okay. And then we start, and I bring the pizza and we do the games, and I bring some other adult leaders to help too. But UIC has done all I'll call it the dirty work, because I don't know. It's the stuff that nobody wants to do, which is going to the district and filling out forms and stuff I don't know how to do, honestly. Yeah. And so the thing, and kind of going off of what Taylor said, the dream for me is, I'd probably love 10 clubs in a couple of years, but also I'd love to see, 10 other churches have 10 clubs, and there's how many schools are we in right now in San Diego?
UIC as a whole?
Or yeah, how many, what percentage of schools are we in? Junior high
UYC
and
is
high
at
school.
about 100, but that's including 5 in Mexico. And then there's other organizations, obviously, that are doing, but there's other organizations, Young Life, FCA. So I would guess probably most of those schools, of the 280 total public middle school and high schools in San Diego, I would say probably have some sort of connection, but most, some of those might not be very strong.
One of the tricky things is often with, parachurch ministries is that relationship with the church. And we found, especially with you, Chris, that it wasn't, I never felt like you were trying to build something. I never felt that UIC was trying to utilize the church to build something that that UIC was doing. I felt that UIC has always come from this place of we're trying to support your ministry, and not like knocking other parachurch ministries, but it doesn't always feel that way. And I felt so blessed that you're not saying, hey, you need to hand out this or you need to invite everyone to this thing. You've always been trying to figure out how we grow the ministry, and I think that's a testament to how maybe unique UIC is in that way. And I love that.
Awesome. Ryan, any thoughts?
Me and Taylor have kind of talked about this off and on over the last year, that we would love to see all of our clubs come together as, one kind of body for one night and just have a big worship night and prayer night and really just show that, we have these clubs in these specific schools. And I think they can kind of feel a little isolated in that they're part of that specific club. But in reality, they're all part of the body of Christ together, and bringing them together and seeing, just the impact that everyone has. Like we do student leader trainings for all of our, club presidents and vice presidents and students that want to come, and seeing everyone come together like that was huge to just see the vision of San Diego and see the vision of where UIC and churches in the community are leading kids.
And to add one more thing, I think student leadership is the thing I get most excited about, short of us really getting more clubs and just being able to get more people to come to know the Lord. Student leadership is a way I feel that you can't always let your students teach on a midweek service, but you can at club. You can't always let your kids run the games when there's 70 junior highers in the room, but you can at club. And you can get them to be involved and take ownership over their faith, and be thinking outwardly already at 11 years old. And to me, the student leadership capabilities or possibilities is more what I should be saying, are dramatically important in our dreams for the future.
Awesome. Well, what are some stories from those clubs that we're at with the Grove Church?
I can think of one, just Tanner, probably being the first one. He's just a student that is, he's running our Lights ministry now, and he's 15, and he pretty much, I don't want to say lives at the church, but it's really involved, and he's a typical story and of dad not around and mom working like crazy just to make ends meet, and he's had such an incredible community that's opened up to him. And that was just because I met him at a Higher Ground Club when he was in 6th grade. We call them Higher Ground Clubs, if everyone's curious. But I met him at club, and I mean, we could probably name like story after story. Yeah. Most of our kids come from him.
I think one of the ones that's pretty fresh that happened throughout the course of last year was we had this group of 8th grade girls, Chelsea, Aaliyah, and Carrington, and we met them through club last year, beginning of the year, and they literally walked through our whole process of ministry in our student ministry. We met them at that club. That's like our front door. We hung out with them for a few weeks at club.
They actually went to club for a whole year and a half before ever coming to a midweek service. Okay, yeah, so they came.
I mean, through the course of a year and a half, then we built that relationship with them, and then last year they finally they agreed to come to a Friday night, which is when we do junior high group, and they came to our Friday night junior high group, and then they signed up for our winter camp. They accepted the Lord at winter camp. They came back from winter camp in December, and they got baptized, I think, in January, or was it in December, January? Yeah. And then they went to summer camp that summer, had an incredible time at summer camp, and now they are freshmen in high school, and they're in our student leadership program. So literally, like, what our hope for our students when we meet them at club, they walk through that process of just coming to know who Jesus is and how he can completely, and all these girls too, they come from homes, I'm pretty sure that are pretty broken. So just a really cool testament to what just stepping foot on campus can do and meeting these students.
And then you start seeing their families start poking their heads on Easter,
Yeah.
and then and it's full circle, and that's kind of, I think, what gets us so excited is you meet mom and dad 2 years after knowing these kids. It's crazy that they're letting a 24-year-old influence their kids so much without even knowing me, but like meeting them at Easter and them coming, and maybe they won't come again until next Easter, but those relationships with the families are so powerful. I think of Skylar as another example.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Skylar's kind of in that same group of girls to an extent, but real strong leader, like strong, gifted leader. And we gave her an opportunity to share at the last junior high for the 8th graders. Yeah, and the girl's gonna probably be one of our key leaders moving forward, and came from Higher Ground Club. And a lot of people maybe get worried too. You're thinking, are we just gonna flood our youth ministry with a whole bunch of kids who are rough around the edges and aren't Christians and families aren't saved, and what's going to happen to the 6 homeschool kids in our group who are in such a different place, and we've really found that we protect the culture. We are really careful in who we let in. We don't just flood it with kids who want nothing to do with the Lord, but when they come in, it's created this healthy relationship of balance. Like, I don't feel that our homeschool kids or our kids who go to Christian school feel that we have thrown rules and like safety to the wind. We still have a very healthy environment at church, and it hasn't changed that with all these clubs.
I would add, I think a cool story, me seeing it from the outside, is just your church's commitment to campus ministry has been awesome to see. 6 strong years. I think it was 2012. Nathan and I started Lewis Middle School, and that was when Ryan was in high school. And to see what God has done through campus ministry, through the Grove, through UYC, just what can happen when you're consistent, and what can happen when you just say yes to what God has for you. Well, why don't we transition a little bit, unless any other stories you guys want to share. Ryan, maybe you have any?
I don't want to sound braggadocious, but I mean, I'm a product of the campuses.
We have this weird guy named Ryan Simon that
he's okay.
Yeah, he's such a weirdo. Don't ever listen to him. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be either at UYC or the Grove if it weren't for the combination of the two of them really being in my life. Chris, you were the first one to take me to the Grove when Nathan was doing a night at Boomers, and that was the first night that I saw what the Grove was doing, and just stayed ever since. And then the Grove really influenced me in my leadership at club at Patrick Henry, and then went to the internship there, got hired at the UIC, and got hired at the Grove. And none of that would have happened if both of them hadn't been pouring into my life in a really radical way.
That's good to hear. So why don't we transition now and just talk about the Grove's philosophy on youth ministry, and just how youth ministry happens at the Grove.
I'll start, and then we'll slide to you, Jay, if that's okay.
Yeah, I'll fill in the gaps.
Okay. Yeah, just interrupt when you want. For us, it's all about raising up that next generation. And I'd say so my new position has been pretty new. It's about 4 months old. And we're kind of in a place now where we're just now, we don't have a mission statement for our student ministry. We don't.
I mean, our mission statement is the church-wide.
Yeah, would know him and make him known.
Yeah.
So there's not a slogan or core values that we have yet. So I'll just kind of speak from experience, and it's to raise up the next generation of leaders, and it's to make. And I don't know if you would agree with this. I hope you would. But it's to make Christianity and your faith not only powerful but exciting and fun. I don't want I believe it's a sin to make the Bible boring, and it is wrong to make church or faith seem that it's dull. And to me, it's the most powerful, incredible, exciting thing in my entire life, and there's nothing even close to second. And so we kind of communicate that. If someone were to come to a midweek service, you would see 50, 60 junior hires raising their hands in worship, and we don't have this group of 20, 30 kids in the back who have no interest. It's pretty much 90, 95% of the community there has a dramatic desire to have a relationship with God. And so we're about making faith real. I don't want them to just know right and wrong. I want them to know Jesus and have a relationship with Jesus. So when they go away to college, people don't make mistakes because they don't know right and wrong. They make mistakes because they never had a real authentic relationship with the Lord. And so we want to have foster a place where that relationship is real. And I think that's what we've been doing.
I think that hits the nail on the head. I think I've been a part of two extremes when it comes to youth ministry. You have one on the left-hand side where it's all about outreach and you're not focusing on the kid that's already in your ministry. And then you have one on the far right where we don't care about outreach and we just want to disciple. And I think the thing that we've been able to develop the past 3 years is having a really good, healthy balance of both. Obviously, having 5 clubs, it provides that mechanism for us to reach out to those students that don't come from backgrounds of church or don't have a relationship with Jesus, and helping foster a relationship in that sense. But also, we've been able to develop a really cool student leadership program these past couple years as well. And I think that the biggest tragedy that a lot of youth leaders can fall into is focus on the student that's not already there. Yes, we always need to have this posture of reaching out and letting people in. But if we as youth leaders aren't empowering those that God has entrusted us with, I think we've missed the point. And the best form of outreach is using your student leaders that you already have. Like, we have incredible students that I look at, and I compare my junior high self to these junior hires, and they are leaps and bounds beyond where I was. And so I think it would be a tragedy if we didn't intentionally focus time into those students and empower them. Like AJ said earlier, let them run club, constantly have these conversations of what would it look like for you to take a stance for Jesus on your campus? What would it look like for you to live, lead, and look like Jesus at Patrick Henry, at Lewis, at Pershing, all these different places. So I think that's a huge part for us. I think the reason why we don't really have a youth ministry mission statement is because we don't want to be a separate entity of the Grove. Even though we're younger people, we're still a part of the church. We're still a part of the big church. We're not going to create something separate. So to know him and make him known is the Grove's church mission statement, and that's exactly what we're doing at junior high and high school for the Grove. So
maybe should we go into kind of you did it a little bit, but our front door, kind of the, you talked about the process.
We definitely have very clear process into, and I've become a process person this past year. Me last year I hated processes, and now I get giddy over processes because it's an easy, trackable process in which you can see students work through. So our front door, our massive front door, is club. That's where we are meeting any and every kid.
And we'll touch, touch maybe is a weird word, but we'll connect with 200 kids or 150 kids just in our club in the middle of
so that's the big front door. And then we have our, I guess if you would want to call them midweek programming, they're not midweek, but it's our big programming event that we do. So Friday nights is junior high, and then Sunday nights is for high school. So that's still a front door. Not as big as club because you're literally on campus in front of thousands of students, but it's still come one, come all. Everybody's welcome to come. That's when we're doing our over-the-top service, tons of fun games. We'll have an incredible set of worship, message. It's so much fun, so much fun. And then Sunday mornings for junior high is kind of the next step after Friday night where we have Sunday school. So that's very intentional to be small group circles where we're meeting in circles. We're having more of a discussion. Our high schoolers are
serving. We want them. Probably 20 to 30. We have probably 60 to 70 students in our high school ministry, and 20 to 30 of them are serving in ministries on Sunday morning. Yeah. Whether that's children's ministry, running lights. We have our high schoolers are running Pro Presenter.
That's awesome.
And so
it's not charity either. Yeah. They're incredibly gifted at doing it, which is crazy.
It creates a place where I think sometimes in the American church we treat them so separate until they graduate high school. And for us, we don't want to do high school things on Sunday mornings. They're an adult now. We're going to treat them like an adult. They're going to be in the main service. They're going to glean from the message that our pastor is teaching and be a part of worship, but also be helping in ministries. And probably 15 to 20 high schoolers are staying at both services on a Sunday morning because they're helping.
Yeah. And so we have that cool process. And then this year, we really solidified our student leadership, and we created a program called SALT, Student Action Leadership Team. And we had 35 people, 35 junior hires and high school students be a part of leadership. So that's kind of that's kind of like our end goal, is to get students in a position where they're ready to lead, whether that be kids church, whether that would be lights, whether that would be just being a part of the kingdom, serving God's church. So that's kind of our process that we have.
And earlier, AJ, you talked about protecting culture, and I think there are really three main points that we have as far as protecting our culture in youth ministry and in the church as a whole. I think we have a really strong culture of worship. Obviously, is a huge thing. Like we were talking about earlier, that all of our junior hires, they are rushing to the front. They know that when we start worship, that is a time where they get to meet with Jesus, that they can have a powerful encounter with God.
Yeah, sometimes you'll have a kid who doesn't know the Lord, but he's like hands are raised in front just because he's like, this is what everyone's doing, and I don't want to look like weird in the back, and that's where they start to meet the Holy Spirit. But keep going, right?
Yeah, for sure. And then another thing, we have a really, I think, a strong culture of like welcoming and making sure that every single kid there, whether you're new, whether you know Jesus or you don't, whether you know anyone there or you don't, that we're going to make sure that you're feeling like you belong, that we know your name, that we know who you are. I mean, we forget kids' names all the time, but for the most part, we know your name, and you're there for a reason, and we want you there. And the third one is, just like a culture celebration, that we want to make sure that every single thing that's going on in your life, whether it's, you scored a goal in a soccer game on Saturday, or, you're having a great relationship with your parents or whatever, like we want to make sure that every single thing that we're going through is a celebration.
That's awesome. Any other thoughts to add on that?
I think, to be honest and being transparent, an area that we're going to grow in, and I think we can grow a lot, is making sure we teach them strong biblical principles. I think we do a really good job of great messages that are powerful and not like watered down. But I would love, and this is a conversation we've been having a little bit, Taylor and I, to know that by the time they graduate, they know like key biblical principles, and we know that we're sending them off into the world ready to take it, and they can hear something that's like blasphemy, and they know, oh, that's not wrong, and I can tell you why, and so it's something we definitely want to be growing in.
Nice. Alrighty. Well, any final thoughts before we go?
I mean, again, just please, if you're listening to this and you live in San Diego, call UYC. If you are been trying to get your youth ministry to grow and you're trying to figure out why, there's a good chance there's a UYC club at your school, but there's also a good chance there isn't. And they'll help you start one. I give people Chris's number all the time. And they'll do all that work that you don't know how to do and you're confused. They'll get that done for you, and then the Lord will do some crazy stuff.
Yeah, and I would say in the process of you starting those clubs, it's so important that you connect with students, but I think it's even more important that you connect with faculty and staff, front desk workers, principals, vice principals, janitors, anybody that you can connect with on those campuses. Make sure that they know that they're valued and that you build a good relationship with them. I think about this past year we started Taft, and we've managed in a short year to build an incredible relationship with the principal, the principal's assistant. We've gotten to know the janitor who opened up the door for us every single day that we went to that club. The front desk people love us. If you can get favor with the school, then you're going to have a club there for the next 20, 30 years. Don't be discouraged when you start a club and you average an attendance of 10 students for the first year, because it's a start and you got to think long term. You got to think, okay, this is just our first year. Our hope is to preserve this relationship with this school and have a club here forever. So
it's amazing what $5 Little Caesars pizzas and then $5 gift cards to Starbucks can do, because you give those gift cards to the principal, once or twice a year. It'll go a long way.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that I think we've been talking about as a church is, if we suddenly disappeared tomorrow, how would the community feel? Like, would they look at us and be like, oh, dang, like the Grove's gone. Like, what are we going to do? And I think a major part of, a church's presence in the community is got to be in their schools. And if, we're a church out there and we're trying to impact the community, we're trying to make sure that not only people know who we are, but people know who Jesus is, and people know that we are not just there to speak about Jesus, but to help out the community, to plant seeds figuratively and literally, and to really make sure that we're there to make the community better. Then the schools are a major step in that.
That's great. Well, we have the Late Lunch Learning Lab coming up. It's going to be October 1st, Monday, October 1st from 1 to 3 p.m. Lum Haddad from Young Life, the South Bay director, is in to speak, and we would love for you to come. If you would like to learn more about UYC, or if you're already involved and you want to come get some food and fellowship, we would love for you to be there October 1st, Monday, October 1st from 1 to 3. For Ryan, Taylor, and AJ, I'm Chris. Thank you for listening to the UYC Show. For next episode, we will have guest host Brent Hayden in to interview Nate Landis. Visit our website at uyc.org. That's the letter U for urban, Y for youth, and C for collaborative.org. And please consider making a monthly donation on our secure site so that we can expand the work that God has called us to. It would be greatly appreciated. If you have any questions, email us at podcast@uyc.org. God bless you and have a great day.